All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the End Zone Club, where we have conversations wrapped around things we know now, which we wish we knew when we were younger. And of course, these conversations are designed to push you from walking in potential to actually fulfilling your purpose. But today, I got to pivot. I got to segue because I have a very special guest on the pod with me today. He's a bright light shining in community, one of the best at what he does. And before I jump ahead of him today, I would like to introduce a young man by the name of Lee Jackson, who is shining brightly, not just in the Dallas community, but everywhere he's been. So if you guys don't mind, let's take a minute to show our love for Lee Jackson and welcome him on the End Zone Club podcast. How you doing, Brother Lee?
I'm great, and how you doing, brother?
Good. I feel like my day is complete because now we're on the tail end of the Super Bowl. And I was supposed to have had a special guest in the building with me today. Some conflicts, schedule-wise, resulted in my brother. You came to me saying today was the day, so it worked out perfectly. So thank you for being available.
Oh no, man! Hey, anything for you? Anything for you, dude.
But hey, Brother Lee, one thing about you is you are a bright light shining in the community. You have a very unique ministry called Distinctly His that I don't want. Okay. Let me not tell your story. I want you to tell the story about Distinctly His. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Me and my wife started Distinctly His about 3 years ago. We know we were called to do something different, and we know God has called us to be distinct, to be different than everybody else. And so, one thing we thought of is how we're distinct, how we're different than any other ministry that's out here that's doing nonprofit work. And God called us to use our platform that we have every day, and that's helping youth and their families with resources and with opportunities to share the gospel with them and walk life with them and mentor them. And so we got three little pillars that we walk on, and that's one is community. We engage them in community by doing life on life with them. We have a pillar of distinct sports, and that is when we use our football camp. We do a football camp called Football to Faith, where we bring about 15 NFL players in for these young folks to get a chance to learn, grow in the gospel, grow in their faith, and then hear from other professional athletes that's doing the same. That's walking their Christian life out and then playing this game and helping them learn skills. And then the other one is our third pillar is that we use is the mentoring. We mentor young folks in the schools, at-risk youth that's looking for someone to deposit positive information in. And so that's what we started about 3 years ago, and that's Distinctly His. And we do a college bus tour where we take kids to different colleges and universities. And we have one that we take football athletes and we take them across the country and go to different universities and work out at different camps. And then we do one that's just for all girls that is just colleges and universities. And so that's what we get to do.
Brother, within these four pillars, you gave me four different talking points. So I want to do your ministry justice real quickly. I want to talk about the community section. Like, what was it that got you started really pouring into your community?
Man, it's just the way I grew up, like a lot of times people say they're there until they're actually there. And so our community need it. Our community deserve it. Our community deserve the best. And just because we don't have what most people say, a healthy community, and that's what we want to provide, a healthy community by pouring into them, showing them what community is supposed to look like. So we engage with the community of helping people want to, if they're looking to be an entrepreneur, we try to help them find different businesses to get involved with, and then try to build mentorship in between that to help them grow so they can do that. We got some guys who said, hey, I got one guy who wanted to be an entrepreneur. He said, hey, I want to start my own trucking business. And so we help provide some resources for him to start his own trucking business. And so he's out there. We in the community where we know in the need of our of our family members. Everybody's a family member when they're in your community. If we walk and
Indeed.
do life with them, and so we engage them so much to say, hey, we don't want you just to feel like you alone. We want to be in the midst with you, and that's inviting you to church with us. That's inviting you to the games with us. That's inviting you to just hanging out. Let's just go and hang out at the park. But we engage with our community to let them know that, hey, there's some positive role models here that care about you and want to see you do the best. And we help provide resources for that.
The direction that you took this makes me feel like a lot of times we as humans, we as Americans especially, I don't know how it is in the other countries, but we sometimes will see issues in community and we'll talk about it and we'll pray about it, but we don't really put in the work. So to hear you sharing from your heart how important it is for the people around you to feel like they're part of a family, that's really repairing the breach that a lot of us are experiencing. Now, I do have to segue a minute because I have found out that often in ministry, a lot of the things that we address or a lot of the areas that we pour into often is a result of something within us. How was family for you growing up? Is that why is that even an important topic of conversation for you?
Man, I think family is important to me because I grew up at a young age, experienced great family environment with my dad, my mom, my sister, my cousins and aunties. We stayed in. My dad had a house, and we all stayed together. My aunt stayed upstairs. We stayed downstairs, and it was like 15 of us in one big old house that had 2 stories. And
Okay.
so it was great until I got to about the age of 12 years old. And then when I got to 12, my dad went to jail, and my mom went into a shelter, her and my sister, and I lived on the streets and I became homeless. And so being out on the streets, knowing when you have no one's available, no one's there, you feel alone, you value family when you got it. So
I
that's
want, man, I'm already mesmerized. I'm already mesmerized hearing you share about that portion of things were okay at first, then things went opposite directions because oftentimes these are stories that you hear that start off as you just are explaining that don't make a turn. I want you to bring us from being on the streets to where you are now. I got to hear that portion of the story.
Yeah. Oh man, you know, being out on the streets, it was probably one of the scariest things as a young 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15-year-old kid because being young in the midst of the inner city in Cleveland, Ohio, it was a jungle. You sleeping out in the bus shelter sometimes, you might go to a friend's house or go to a cousin's house, so you just never knew who you can depend on, and then you didn't know when the next time you was gonna get something to eat.
Mm.
So sometimes I had to do some things that was just not right sometimes just to provide an opportunity for me to
Yeah.
eat or to have me a safe place to sleep. But in those things, in the scariest moments of your life, not knowing if you're going to end up being stabbed and jumped on by homeless people or any of that other stuff, knowing if somebody going to look out for you.
Mm.
Um, Man, God in the midst of that, man, brought me out. He provided a coach who's been in my life ever since I was 8 years old. But when I was out on the streets, sometimes you don't know how you can communicate with those guys and say, "Hey, you're
Mm.
homeless. You need help." And we end up being where I ran back into my coach after going to a different school. And when I saw them, they were getting ready to go on the track meet. They was going to a track meeting. He was down there at the bus at the high school, and I just went to him and said, "Hey, can I come?" And he go, "Lee, where you been?" And I just broke down crying and said, "Man, can I
Mm.
go?" He hugged me, told me to get on the bus, and this coach is Ted Ginn Sr. Ted Ginn Sr.
That
is
name
all
sounds
about winning
familiar.
lives and saving life. Yeah, his son is Ted Ginn Jr., who played in NFL for 14 years, who he coached
49ers.
Troy. Yes, he coached Troy Smith. He coached Dante Whitner. He coached Pierre Woods. He got probably over 20 guys that played in NFL today, you know? And so he was always that father figure, but he became more of a dad when he kind of said, come on, son, I'm going to take you in for a little bit. You know, he kind of go, hey, I got you. You know, he took me to a football camp where Jim Tressel was there recruiting, and that's how he got me to go. And it was a Christian football camp. And a guy named Oscar Rome was speaking, who played for the Browns, ex-Browns player. He said, if you died today, where would you go? And I had to reflect on those lonely nights I had out in the streets. I had to reflect on those things I was doing that was wrong, that I knew was wrong, you know? And I had to come to realization I didn't want to go to hell. I had to come to that realization I did not want to spend eternity separated from God. But at that one point I was questioning, as they were talking at the beginning of how much God loves you, I was thinking, how could God really love me when
It's real.
I'm starving some nights? How can he really love me
It's real.
when I was freezing outside some days? How can he love me when it feel like my parents were gone or just leaving me just for other things? And but I had to realize he provided a mentor for me. He provided a family member for me. He provided a coach for me. He provided a mentor for me. And that was Ted Ginn Sr. And that was some of my cousins. That was some of my best friends who mom just said, hey, just come live with us. You know, that was some of my other teammates that was there was like, hey, you know, I know you don't have this, but you know, you can do this. Or one of the guys that my family had a really big reputation in the neighborhood, and everybody knew who they were, and they knew I was a good athlete. And so I can go to the barbershop and I can get a brand new pair of shoes from the barber to say, hey, Lee, man, we're going to take care of you. We just don't want you to go out in the streets, you know, but really them not knowing I was living on the streets, you know, but they always looked out for me. And so I had to come to realization, man, God was providing people and things for me to make sure I was being safe, that I was being protected, and showing his hand of favor upon me. And so I accepted Christ that day. And from that day, Ted Ginn Sr. started taking me to church. He started helping me, and then playing ball, had an opportunity to go play ball, but had no grades. I had a 1.7 GPA when I graduated from high school. And people was asking, how can you have a GPA that low? And I was like, hey, I was missing 30 days of school out of a quarter, every quarter. So I was just grateful to even graduate. But in my heart, I always wanted to go to college, and Ted Ginn Sr. knew that. And so he provided me an opportunity to go. Hey, though all these other places he was dropping me for my scholarships and stuff like that, he goes, hey, you need to go down to Mississippi, you know, to go Mississippi Valley State. I went down there, took the test to go in open enrollment, passed the test, and I got in, you know, and I got a chance to play sports out there in Mississippi Valley. But God was changing my life. He was changing me from the inside of all those things that I was doing that was wrong, the drinking, the smoking, the girls and all that other stuff. He was taking that away from me to prepare me to go to a place called Kids Across America. It's the largest inner city Christian sports camp in America. We see over 4,000 kids, 5,000 kids a summer from all over the country. And in the midst of that, I'm going, God, okay, you taking away this love for alcohol. You taking that away from me. You know, taking away that appetite of wanting to go out to the clubs and party, and you taking those things from me, or smoking, and I just stopped it cold turkey. I mean, I didn't want to do it because I started reading the Bible more and more, and God just continued to start putting scriptures in my life that was going, hey, I'm gonna take that away from you. And I was going, man, am I trying? My favorite one was Galatians 1:10. Am I trying to win the approval of man or God? If I'm trying to please God, I would be a servant of Christ. And so if I'm trying to be a servant of Christ, I got to please God with that. In my actions of what I was doing, I was not pleasing. And so went to work at this Christian sports camp this one summer, and I was a maintenance guy because I wasn't spiritually ready. And so I was in a Bible study with the director. This guy's named Stephen Moore. He was the director of the camp. I was in a Bible study with him every week. I was in a Bible study with a guy named Ricky Jimerson, who these guys I call my mentors, my spiritual leaders. Ricky Jimerson, he was on leadership, and he was the one that recruited me. He came to Mississippi Valley State just kind of recruiting, and their slogan was, if you love God, you love sports, and you love kids, this is where you want to be. And I go, I love all those things. And so I was in a Bible study with this guy. He was like, hey, I want to recruit you to come. And I had to go to class. He was in the student union, and I go, hey, man, can I talk to you for a minute? He was like, yeah, how much time you got? So I got to go to class. Can you be here when I get back? He said, I'll be here. And I go, and I started really thinking, I go, no, you won't. I said, you won't be here. And he go, what you mean? He said, I'm going to take you out to lunch after once you get out of class. I said, you won't. I said, you'll be like pretty much all the other guys that's been in my life.
Mm.
And that guy, he stayed. And the good thing is I went like I was going to class, and I faked like I was going to class. And then I come back around the corner. I go, man, class was canceled. So I went. We went to lunch. We went to lunch because I really wanted to go to that camp because I knew in the summer I had nowhere to go. It was like I was homeless all over again because I didn't know where to go. And so, because I didn't have any money, went to the camp. So I had a Bible study with him every day while I worked at the camp. And then they put another guy on leadership that I had Bible study with. So I was meeting with these guys 3 times a week. Just they pouring scripture into my life, and I'm cutting grass. And I didn't have a driver's license at this point in time. So I'm pushing a lawnmower around, a couple acres, cutting grass and with a weed eater and stuff like that. And I'm working hard. But because I was working hard, because I knew what I really wanted to do, and I wanted to be a counselor there. And because I was growing, I was reading, and I prayed when the semester was coming up the next month, everybody got to leave for changeover. I asked God, can I stay? I'd love to stay. And a counselor position came open because one counselor didn't show up. And, the Stephen, the director, and Ricky Jimerson got together and go, hey, I think Lee might be ready. We'll put him with a veteran, and we'll see what he'll do. So I stayed that next month. And I was like, man, well, I was able to get paid, and I was able to stay. But then I did a good job, and I was praying, God, can I stay another for the rest of the summer? And an opportunity came. A couple counselors didn't show up. So they was like, hey, Lee, you want to stay? I was like, yes. So I stayed all summer. I was getting paid, but I was growing in the Lord, and I was sharing the gospel with young folks. But I was sharing my story of how I was homeless and how I was, struggling with the next decision, the next choice I was going to make, And so when I went down there to camp, and these guys go, Lee, you need to get out of this environment that I was in Mississippi Valley State, because some things happened. It was kind of tough. And so they said, hey, we know a guy that is a mission counselor at Warner University up in Florida. And it was called Warner Southern back then. But it was like, hey, you can come out here, and I think you can do well. It's a Bible school, and I go, okay. And so just then, a buddy of mine who was a counselor lived 30 minutes away from the college. And he was a baseball guy, and we played baseball together. He said, Lee, I'll drive you up to Florida. So he drove me up to Florida. I worked out for the baseball coach. I threw 25 pitches. The coach said, I got you. We'll give you a scholarship. And I was happy. And then I went and talked to the athletic director, who was the track coach and cross country coach. And he goes, hey, so tell me you do anything else other than baseball? I said, well, I ran track at Mississippi Valley. I played baseball there and, a little football. He go, okay, well, let's do this. What you running? What are your times? And so I ran 46.4 in the 400. He go, well, you'll be the fastest guy on this campus right now. So we'll provide you with a scholarship there. And so that took care of all of my bills. And I was like, okay. So I said, I got to go home and tell my mom. And at this time, my mom was back in Cleveland, got an apartment. And when I went back home to stay with her and tell her what was going on, she was struggling a little bit financially. And I had some money from the camp and everything. And so I gave her some money. And it was time for me to go to school. And, I just wanted to help my mom, to make sure she get on her feet and take care of her. And so I didn't have no money to get back to school because I was helping her with all I had. And so I called the admission counselor a month late. School was already started in August. I called him in September. And I go, hey, man, I just want to know. And this guy's name Wade Mosley. I go, hey, I just want to know, can I come to school? He go, Lee, where you been? I go, man, I've been at home just helping my mom. I just want to know, can I come and go to school? He goes, well, school's already started, a month already. And don't know if we can get you in. We can't get you in the dorms. I think coaches, they probably still commit to their scholarship that they gave you, but we just need to talk to them. So he talked to them. They said, yes, we'll fulfill that commitment that we made to them. And I went out there. I went to Florida. I had got a bus ticket, and I rode the bus all the way to Florida, from Cleveland to Florida. But I had to stay with Wade Mosley. It was a long bus ride, but Wade Mosley, the mission counselor, I stayed with him. He said, you got to stay with me. I stayed with him because I didn't have a place to stay. And so I was, I was doing well. I had a great job, great time at school, learning the Bible, going to chapels and just growing. And I started becoming a recruiting coordinator for camp. And so I always stay out there. I just never really came back home to Cleveland. And so, I call Ted Ginn Sr. all the time and go, hey, Ginn, hey, I need this, or I need this advice. And he'd give it to me. He'd tell me. And so God has kind of been putting that on my life. And then I started working at the camp. I started working full time at the camp. And there he took me to the football coach he was like, yeah, you can coach here, tell me what you know. And I told him and my experience. And, I started working with his quarterback, who was his little brother. And, Jason go, only thing I ask for you right now is to have a Bible study in a month. I had about 15 guys from that football team join the Bible study with me within 2 weeks. These guys moved me in my apartment, doing that, and then I went to Memphis.
Wow. I think we dropped the call. So if you guys will give me a moment, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, this is Anthony Mitchell. We're back at the tail end of this interview. My guest has somehow dropped the call, but while I'm waiting on him to come back in, he probably hit a dead spot in his area. I did want to let our listeners know one of the reasons I wanted to get Brother Lee on this call to share his testimony is because we have been blessed with an opportunity here in our city to partner with our youth drug courts. And I think sometimes, especially with a lot of our platforms, when I say platforms, it's especially ministry wise, a lot of times we're not really ministering to the kids that are on the other sides of the track, people that maybe aren't popular, people maybe that have made bad choices and decisions in life and have been stamped as headed towards the wrong way. I wanted them to hear this powerful story of restoration beyond rags, because it shows kids that the process works if you trust it, that it doesn't matter how you start in life, but it's about how you finish. And if you really want to change, God will position you with the right kind of leaders, mentors, with the right kind of people that can draw out of you what you need. And one of the takeaways I was getting from Lee's story as he was sharing was how when he needed it the most, there were things that were in him that he wanted to manifest, whether it was going to high school and completing, whether it was going to college. As this story progresses, you would see him doing all those things. But in addition, God blessed him with a beautiful family, wife, kids, a ministry that impacts a lot of kids that look and sounded just like his story. Man, I hate that he's dropped that call. I hate that he's went through a bad area, but just the gist of it, guys. You know, we oftentimes will get powerful stories on here, and I'm just in a state of awe being allowed to just sit in and listen, because all I am is a magnet that tries to place people in the lighthouse that allows their light to shine, not only just here in America, but for our listeners that are all across the United States of America. So, as always, every episode, you guys know that I always encourage you to like, share, rate, subscribe, do what you have to do. If you want to donate to keep this kind of content going, or if you want to support some of the co-hosts that I've had on here that have blessed us. Find them on various social media platforms. As we said about Lee, his ministry is called Distinctly His. You can find them on Facebook, Distinctly His. And they'll show pictures, videos. They'll keep everybody up to date with newsletters and various forms of publications so that you can see what they are doing with their donations, what they are doing with the support, and the ways they're projecting in the community and being a blessing. And last year, I'll tell this story while he's not on, but I follow his Distinctly His page, and there were some people that are counter pursuant to what he believes. I'm not pointing fingers at any different religious denomination, but there were some people who don't believe in the same God he believes. So they took it upon themselves that every time he would post something positive about what he was doing for the kids, they would fight. I'm talking about fight tooth and nail. And I saw this happen one time, and at first it kind of took me back by surprise, because I didn't know why anybody would have anything negative to say about this brother and what he's doing. And then I saw it again, and without asking his permission or anything, I went to fight for the brother. I started counterpunching these people who were fighting. So earlier in the podcast, the brother talked about doing a boys tour and a girls tour, just to give you guys an example. So on the girls tour, people were saying, well, why are you just targeting girls? On the boys tour, why are you just targeting boys? It's like no matter what he did, it wasn't enough. And I took personal offense to that, seeing people fighting those that are trying to do good, and they themselves not doing anything to make anything better. And we need to have more people stand up like that and defend those and share the stories of those who are doing their best to be a positive light in the community. With that said, guys, you were listening to another episode of the End Zone Club podcast. I will have to get him back on for part 2, because I don't want you to miss the rest of his testimony. But until then, be blessed.